The disturbing case of Daniel Marsh. Daniel Marsh's story serves as a horrifying example of the depths of human depravity and the terrible outcomes that can arise from unrestrained aggression. Daniel William Marsh was born on June 13, 1997, in the sleepy Californian town of Davis. At first glance, he seemed like any other teenager, but what happened on April 14, 2013, would destroy any sense of normalcy in his life and send the neighborhood into an unfathomably terrifying nightmare. Marsh, who was just 15 years old at the time, started a journey of horrific savagery that night that would change everyone's life and cause shockwaves across the country. With a knife in hand and driven by a sinister urge, Marsh broke into the Davis, California, home of an elderly couple named Claudia Maupin and Oliver Chip Northup. The couple was sleeping in their bed when Marsh attacked them viciously, resulting in a scene of unmatched brutality. The crime specifics are both horrifying and hard to understand. With a passion that defied logic, Marsh repeatedly stabbed Maupin and Northup, leaving their helpless bodies with severe wounds. The tragedy did not, however, stop there. The corpses of Marsh's victims were mutilated in a gruesome act of cruelty, and the scene of unspeakable violence that Marsh left behind would haunt the neighborhood for years to come. The bodies of Maupin and Northup were discovered the next morning, sending shockwaves through Davis's peaceful streets and shattering the previously held sense of safety. Investigators were astounded by the savagery of the crime and found it difficult to reconcile the mindless violence that had been inflicted upon two defenseless people. A troubling picture of Daniel Marsh emerged as the investigation went on, showing a disturbed young man on the verge of despair. Even at his young age, Marsh showed a terrible lack of empathy for the lives he had taken in an act of incomprehensible brutality, displaying no regret for them. Rather, he brazenly told others about the murders, narrating the graphic details with a disconcerting mix of excitement and pride. In the end, Daniel Marsh's case would push the boundaries of the criminal justice system and present difficult issues on the nature of justice, accountability, and the intricacies of mental illness. The public looked to Davis for answers when Marsh was put on trial for his horrific acts, desperate for explanations in the face of unfathomable evil. Daniel Marsh ultimately found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder with exceptional circumstances, a decision that sealed his fate and guaranteed he would live out the rest of his days in prison. However, the specter of his actions would never go away, acting as a sobering reminder of our shared tendency toward evil and the necessity of being vigilant in the face of unimaginable horror. Daniel Marsh, a teenager from Davis, California, is a terrible and unsettling example of a young offender who committed excessive violence. Daniel William Marsh was born on June 13, 1997, but his life took a terrible turn on April 14, 2013, when he committed a vicious double murder that stunned the neighborhood and attracted national attention. Marsh, who was just 15 years old at the time, broke into the Davis, California, home of an elderly couple named Claudia Maupin and Oliver Chip Northup that fateful night. Marsh attacked the gullible couple while they slept in their bed, brandishing a knife. He stabbed them repeatedly, leaving them with severe wounds, and then he did unfathomable things to their bodies. Both citizens and investigators were astounded by the crime's extreme severity. Friends worried when they couldn't get through to the couple via phone found their bodies the next morning. There was blood all over the walls and signs of a violent battle, making the scene one of unspeakable horror. Daniel Marsh started to take on an unsettling appearance as authorities dug more into the case. Marsh, for all his youth, showed a startling lack of concern for the consequences of what he was doing. He seemed almost proud of his horrible acts and had no regrets for the deaths he had taken. Following the deaths, Marsh is said to have braggingly told acquaintances about the killings, going into graphic detail about them and exhibiting an unsettling fixation with violence and death. Marsh's past and mental health further complicated the case. Despite coming from what appeared to be a regular middle-class family, there were signs of deeper problems. Prior to receiving treatment, Marsh had battled mental health issues, such as anxiety and despair, but there were no overt indicators of the severe violence he was going to unleash. Daniel Marsh's trial, which attracted a lot of media attention, presented him as a disturbed young man who had given in to his worst instincts. Marsh, according to the prosecution, showed a level of premeditation and calculating that belied his age by carefully planning the murders. In contrast, Marsh's defense team emphasized his mental health issues, and contended that he needed to be prosecuted as a juvenile due to his youth and psychological susceptibilities. Daniel Marsh was ultimately found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder with exceptional circumstances after his trial as an adult. He was sentenced to 52 years to life in jail, essentially guaranteeing that he would spend the remainder of his life behind bars despite his childhood at the time of the murders. The Daniel Marsh case remains a source of hauntings for the Davis community, serving as a sobering reminder of the potential for evil that can lurk in even the youngest of us. It poses significant queries on the nature of justice, the intricacies of mental illness, and society's duty to shield its most defenseless citizens from the perils of hopelessness and violence. The principal elements of the Daniel Marsh case are as follows. 1. The brutal murders. The case's main focus is on the vicious killings of an elderly Davis, California couple named Claudia Maupin and Oliver Chip Northup. Daniel Marsh, who was only 15 years old at the time, viciously attacked the unwary couple while they slept in their house. Law enforcement officials and the community were startled by the extent of violence committed upon the victims. 2. The unsettling character of the crime. What was most unsettling about the crime was how heinous and senseless it was. In addition to repeatedly stabbing the couple, Marsh disfigured their bodies, creating a horrifying scene in his wake. Marsh's shocking acts of brutality and cruelty shocked the neighborhood and attracted national notice. 3. Marsh's psychological condition. During the course of the inquiry and trial, Marsh's psychological condition came to light. There have been rumors circulating that Marsh suffered from anxiety and despair in the past. Nevertheless, there were no overt indicators of the severe brutality he would inflict. His cocky attitude regarding the murders and his seeming indifference to the seriousness of his conduct sparked concerns about his psychological state and empathy. 4. Legal processes. The case's judicial processes were well publicized and controversial. Despite his age at the time of the killings, Marsh was prosecuted as an adult and ultimately found guilty on 2 charges of first-degree murder with exceptional circumstances. 5. Influence on the community. The Daniel Marsh case had a significant influence on the Davis community and beyond. The choice to trial him as an adult generated discussions on how to treat juvenile criminals and the proper penalties for such horrible crimes. Residents were left reeling, and the illusion of safety was broken by the needless death toll and the horrific violence committed by a teenager. The case brought up significant issues regarding the stigma associated with mental illness, the causes of violent behavior, and the necessity of aggressive preventative measures. All things considered, the Daniel Marsh case is a sobering reminder of the complexity of human nature, the terrible results of unbridled violence, and the difficulties in confronting and stopping such heinous acts in society. The case of Daniel Marsh stands as a chilling reminder of the darkest recesses of the human psyche and the devastating consequences that can arise from unchecked violence. From the quiet streets of Davis, California, to the national spotlight, Marsh's story has captivated and horrified audiences, sparking difficult conversations about justice, mental illness, and the fragility of our shared humanity. In the aftermath of Marsh's brutal crimes, the community of Davis was left reeling, grappling with the shattered illusion of safety and the incomprehensible loss of 2 beloved neighbors. The legal proceedings that followed, marked by intense scrutiny and controversy, forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of juvenile crime and the complexities of culpability. Yet, amidst the darkness, there are lessons to be learned. The Daniel Marsh case serves as a sobering reminder of the importance of vigilance and empathy in the face of unimaginable horror. It challenges us to confront the demons that lurk within our own hearts and to strive for a world where such senseless violence has no place. As we reflect on the tragic events that unfolded in Davis on that fateful night, let us honor the memory of Claudia Maupin and Oliver Chip Northup by committing ourselves to building a society where compassion triumphs over cruelty and where the light of hope shines brightly in even the darkest of times. Only then can we truly honor the legacy of those whose lives were senselessly cut short and ensure that their memory will never be forgotten. Would you like it? Hit the like button and subscribe to our channels for more interesting and informative videos.